My parents sold the house while I was at school and moved to another country. I just sent them my legal bill. I was 14 years old when I came home on a Friday afternoon to a house that had been emptied. Not robbed, emptied. The distinction matters because robbery implies someone took something that belonged there. What had happened was more deliberate than that. The furniture was gone, the kitchen had been cleared. My bedroom contained my bed, my clothes in a pile beside it, and a white envelope on the floor with my name written on the outside in my mother's handwriting. The envelope contained $300 in cash, the address of my father's sister 2 towns over, and a note explaining that my parents had accepted a work opportunity abroad and that Aunt Celestine was expecting me, and that they were confident I would be fine because I had always been capable. I sat on the bare floor of my empty bedroom for a long time. I was 14. I had walked home from school carrying a backpack containing a history assignment due the following Monday. I sat there until the light through the window changed color, and then I called Celestine from the landline, which still had a few days of service remaining because apparently even my parents had considered that detail. Celestine arrived within the hour. She did not say much on the drive back to her house. She fed me, showed me to a room, and sat across from me at her kitchen table and said that what had happened was not acceptable and not my fault, and that she was going to need a few days to understand the legal situation before she said anything further. She was a practical woman. She remains the most practically loving person I have ever known. I stayed with Celestine for 4 years. I finished school. I applied for university and was accepted and received a partial scholarship that Celestine supplemented without fanfare or expectation of return. My parents were reachable by email during those years in the way of people who have reorganized their conscience around the idea that staying in contact constitutes adequate parenting. They sent birthday messages. They asked about my grades with the interest of people following a stranger's progress on a distant leaderboard. I did not perform anger at them. I performed, instead, a very long and patient attention. I studied law. This was not strategic at the time of choosing. I was drawn to it for reasons that felt instinctive and that I have since come to understand were probably not unconnected to the specific experience of sitting on a bare floor at 14, understanding that the world did not automatically protect you. I qualified at 26, joined a firm, and built a practice in family law that deals substantially with child welfare cases. The irony is not lost on me. I do not find it amusing. I find it motivating. My parents returned to the country 11 years after leaving it, retirement aged and financially diminished by the abroad opportunity that had not sustained itself across the decades they had wagered on it. My father emailed me 8 months after their return. The tone was careful and warm and moving steadily, across 4 paragraphs, toward a request that I recognized before it arrived. They needed help navigating a housing assistance application. The process was complicated and they understood I had relevant expertise and they hoped we might speak. I read the email twice. Then I referred it to the part of myself that had spent 11 years in a profession devoted to the protection of children who had been failed by the adults responsible for them, and I composed a response. I told them I would help. I'm a family lawyer and the application was within my competence, and I will not pretend that refusing would have been anything other than a performance of a cruelty I do not actually want to embody. I also sent them, attached to a separate email, an invoice for professional services rendered at my standard hourly rate, itemized across the consultation I had already provided in the form of the legal knowledge I had applied to reading their situation. It was a real invoice on real letterhead. It was not a large amount relative to my rates. It was not intended to be. It was intended to establish, cleanly and professionally and without a single emotional word, the precise nature of the relationship they were now requesting access to. They paid it. They did not respond to the payment with anything except a brief acknowledgement. I processed the payment, filed the documentation, and submitted their housing application with the same competence I bring to every file that crosses my desk. The application was approved 3 weeks later. I sent them a one-line email confirming the outcome. Celestine knows all of this. I told her over dinner at her kitchen table, the same table where she sat across from a 14-year-old carrying a history assignment, and told him that what had happened was not his fault. She was quiet for a moment after I finished. Then she said that she thought I had handled it with more grace than was strictly required. I told her I had learned from the best available example. She told me to finish my food. I did.